era of engine rules. After discussions with Porsche and Honda, Red Bull has announced a collaboration that will mean Red Bull Racing and AlphaTauri use Ford-branded engines from 2026 until at least 2030. The Red Bull-Ford partnership will be based out of the new Red Bull Powertrains facility that has been built up over the last 2 years, but Ford has claimed it will have a big role in the hybrid part of the engines in particular as well. After an absence of nearly 2 decades, Ford's return is a big deal for F1 and the new rules. So why now for Ford, how will it work, and will this project add to the success or failure of Ford's sketchy F1 history? As we answer those questions, let us know in the comments what you think about Ford's comeback and if you think Red Bull has made the right choice. Ford's F1 return and the deal with Red Bull was announced either side of a livery reveal for Red Bull's 2023 F1 car, the RB19, in New York. As this was just a show car dressed in the latest version of a familiar colour scheme, Red Bull's season launch had to play second fiddle, with Ford unsurprisingly the main focus. This deal reunites two organisations that have an intertwined F1 history. Red Bull held a majority stake in Sauber that began when it became Ford's works team for 1995 and 1996, and it was the Ford-owned Jaguar team that Red Bull bought to create what is now Red Bull Racing. So why a reunion in this form? Ford has been interested in a potential F1 program for several months, based around the 2026 engine rules, which feature 100% sustainable fuels according to F1, and an increase in the electrical component of the engine to almost 50%. But Ford was not keen to pursue its own team, either by investing in an existing one or starting one from scratch, nor was Ford willing to greenlight a bespoke engine project like Audi has done. The opportunity to partner Red Bull Powertrains presented Ford with a neat compromise, an F1 project it can be at the centre of and contribute to without the expense or expertise required to go it alone. As for Red Bull, the deal bolsters its young Powertrains division's financial and marketing power. It was never envisaged that Red Bull Powertrains would be dependent on a partnership with an automotive manufacturer, but conversations were held with Porsche and Honda before Ford. Red Bull team boss Christian Horner said collaborating with an OEM would be acceptable as long as it was on Red Bull's terms, which Ford appeared to have met by making a financial commitment and a technical contribution while allowing Red Bull to retain ultimate control. By comparison, Porsche wanted to buy a stake in Red Bull's entire F1 operation, while a hybrid-only input is thought to have been too little for Honda, although it hasn't even decided to commit to an F1 return yet anyway. It's not expected that Honda will be involved in the project in any way, given the engines will run under the Ford banner, which means Red Bull's collaboration with Honda will end following the 2025 season. Red Bull won the 2021 drivers' title with Honda and struck a deal to continue using the Japanese manufacturer's engines after it officially withdrew from F1 that year. The Honda-designed engine powered Max Verstappen and Red Bull to a double title triumph in 2022, and Red Bull has a deal in place for both its teams to keep using the power unit, which Honda still builds and maintains in Japan, for 3 more seasons. From 2026 though, Red Bull and AlphaTauri will switch to the first in-house Red Bull F1 engine, which will now bear the Ford name. And we'll be exploring where that leaves Honda in another video next week, so make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, and you'll be alerted as soon as that drops. So, is this just a glorified engine sponsorship deal a la Red Bull's Tag Heuer or Aston Martin days in the 2010s? Red Bull and Ford insist it isn't. They say it's a strategic partnership as well. Red Bull set up a new division to build its own F1 engine for the first time as it planned for life beyond Honda. Major investment has gone into the new Powertrains facility at Red Bull's Milton Keynes campus, and it's kitted out to build the combustion engine, but has always been expected to need third-party support for the hybrid system. This is where Ford will supposedly have direct involvement, elevating the deal beyond just a branding exercise. As Red Bull's so-called strategic partner, Ford claims it will support Red Bull's development in as many areas as possible, citing battery cell and electric motor technology, as well as power unit control software and analytics as specific items. Whether Ford really contributes to the hybrid side or not, only time will tell, but it claims to want 2 clear benefits out of being in F1: research and development and marketing. The new 2026 rules include an uprated 350 kilowatt MGUK and an enhanced battery to cope with that, which will further reinforce F1's claim to racing with the world's leading hybrid engine. Ford wants to tap into F1's growth in the US and the technology to advertise the massive $50 billion investment it's making in electric vehicles, which is key to its company strategy. CEO Jim Farley says that Ford's push for 2 million extra vehicles by 2026 is the company's biggest production leap in almost 100 years. So his intention is for Ford to use F1 to generate awareness of that massive fleet of electric vehicles and supposedly enhance the technology it uses too. That sounds perfectly proper, but it's inevitable that some will not be entirely convinced. Parallels will be drawn between Red Bull Ford and past engine sponsorship arrangements, or even what Andretti wants to do with Cadillac and General Motors. But that comparison merits its own video entirely, which we are planning to do, so keep your eyes out for it. Ford's return with Red Bull will bring it back into F1 for the first time since 2004 and resumes a long association with Grand Prix racing that has been a mixed bag. The first Ford engine appeared in 1963, but it wasn't until the winning debut of the legendary DFV engine in the 1967 Dutch Grand Prix that Ford's F1 history really started. The DFV and its variants went on to win 155 F1 races, shared between 10 different teams, including Lotus, Brabham, McLaren and Williams. That makes it the most successful engine design in F1 history, with the last win coming in 1983. As for Ford, it has a total of 176 victories as an engine supplier, which puts it behind only Ferrari, Mercedes and Renault. It also won 13 Drivers' World Championships and 10 Constructors' titles. But what you might not know is that Ford's main successes tended to come when it had less direct involvement. The Ford DFV engine was produced for F1 by Cosworth Engineering. Ford committed £100,000 to that project in 1965, or around £1.4 million in today's money. Through this arrangement, Ford continued to support Cosworth and all of this success in the DFV era and in the years that followed, such as Cosworth producing the Ford Zetec R works engine that Benetton used to win the Drivers' Championship with Michael Schumacher in 1994. But then Ford's F1 history started to change. It backed Jackie Stewart in setting up his eponymous F1 team and supplied works engines from 1997 to 1999, winning the 1999 European Grand Prix. Having bought Cosworth Racing in 1998, Ford then turned to being a team owner for the first time as it bought Stewart, rebranded it as Jaguar and made it a full works team. The idea was to create a British Ferrari, but it wasn't successful, managing just 2 podium finishes in 85 races, and it never did better than 7th in the Constructors' Championship. There were multiple changes in leadership and even an audacious attempt to sign Adrian Newey that almost came off. But Ford gradually cut back its investment, leading to significant job cuts and budget reductions, then decided to pull out completely. A Ford Cosworth engine did at least win a race in this time, courtesy of Giancarlo Fisichella's remarkable victory in Brazil in 2003 for Jordan. But Ford had had enough. It sold the F1 team to Red Bull and Cosworth Racing to Champ Car World Series co-owners Kevin Kalkoven and Gerald Forsyth. Now Ford's back in F1 in partnership with the same entity that it sold part of its last program to. How successful this chapter of Ford's history is might just depend on how involved it's allowed to be.